Interesting day and interesting session. Startup story. Hi Gautam, good to see you here. Yeah, and I think Nida is also there. Okay, so good evening everyone to all the audience. Jagat, Akhil, great to set this up. So Ashutosh, what we'll do is we'll just quickly explain to people what the thought process here is. Is that okay with you? I'll just give a 30-second overview and then we kickstart because we're at 5:05.
Yes.
So to everyone who's joining in and everyone who's going to be watching us, basically the thought process here is to give an opportunity for these wonderful folks who are our ecosystem, our community, our stakeholders, the startup founders. They will be pitching, and Gautam, Nida, what matters is just go for it, right? There's no one who's going to tell you stop now, cut down your presentation, nothing of that sort. What you need to do is just but keep it as crisp as possible, keep it as interesting as possible for the audience, and remember that this is something that you can take to the rest of the world, the people that you know, to your customers, to your investors, to the rest of your team.
Hello?
And what matters is make a great presentation. All right. So Ashutosh, is that good? Would you like to add a couple of pointers to that?
Yeah, I think that's a perfect description of what we are doing today. I just one thing that I'd add is that what we'd like to do is based on our own experiences. If there's something that we see that can be done to the pitch deck that will help you against for the investors. So we'd share that, and we'll talk to you about all that as well. So that's just my 2 cents.
Perfect. So do you want to keep any order as such? Gautam, would you like to go first? How do you want to do this? You're on mute.
You're on mute.
It's fine. I don't mind going first.
Yeah.
Alrighty. Sure. So great. So would you like to give us a heads up as to how much time you'll take and how many slides you have, just so that we know?
I got around approximately 20 slides, but I shouldn't take more than 12 minutes. 11 to 12.
Alrighty. Go for it, man.
Yeah.
All the best.
All right.
Yes,
all the best.
Hello, everyone. I'm Gautam. Just give me a second. I'll present the screen. Can you guys look at the slides?
Not yet, Gautam. Not yet. No.
Okay.
You can see you, and it's a blank, dark screen.
Yeah, it should be coming up now.
Yeah. No problem. No worries. Just remember that you're on YouTube. You're being streamed live.
Yeah, that's okay. Can you see the slides now? Or maybe I'll change the...
Not yet, buddy. Not yet. Don't do one thing. Just restart again. Okay?
Okay. Let me start the slide and restart.
Yeah. Just click on screen share and, just say start presentation and it'll be all good. Yes. Perfect. Oh, oops.
Okay. I'll start again.
Yeah.
Maybe entire screen.
Yeah, good. And to the audience, click on the screen and it'll enlarge. All right. You can see the whole screen there. Gautam, go for it, man.
Okay. Hi, everyone. I'm Gautam Varma, co-founder of Streammunity Pvt Ltd. And we have a service called Bubbles. Streammunity is basically it's an OTT streaming service aggregator where you can access multiple OTT services using a single platform. I'm sure that many of you have faced problems accessing multiple OTT platforms. For example, you may want to watch a movie, but you would realize that that movie is not available in that particular OTT service. So you need to buy a new OTT subscription and then watch it. This and similar problems which we face with multiple OTT platforms is what we intend to solve using our streaming aggregation service. In terms of OTT services, in India alone, we have around 30 different OTT streaming platforms. And if you go internationally to US and Europe, it goes up to over 100 services. And we all know that it's going to be very difficult trying to buy most of these services, especially since there are too many services, and it's going to cost a lot to buy each service separately or as a package. Other problems usually customers face is that you have to switch between multiple platforms or different OTT services. If you want to watch a movie, then you go to one service, then you got to show a different OTT platform. So you need to open the new app and go to a different service. and so on. Other is that managing these multiple subscriptions, some of them may expire in 3 months, some expire in say 1 year, and so on. So we are trying to bring everything together into single platform and then solve many of the problems we generally face with recommendations, searches, and accessing contents across multiple platforms at the same time. So we came up with a solution which is basically a microtransaction model, where you traditionally, rather than subscribing to the whole content of the whole OTT platform for say 6 months or 1 year, we try to give you access to the particular content in a particular OTT platform as a transaction. So you pay for the single transaction, watch a movie, and in the process get a better user experience and better recommendations and so on. So through a single platform, you can pay for the particular content and you watch the content and then get a better user experience rather than shifting to multiple platforms for multiple contents. Moreover, we'll give you a single user experience where you'll have a single user experience across multiple platforms rather than different interfaces with different OTT platforms. And moreover, since we have access to your viewing patterns across multiple platforms, we can give you better recommendations, and you can search content simultaneously across multiple platforms at the same time without leaving the app. And in the process, your experience will be better compared to traditional viewing patterns. In terms of market, by end of 2023, it is expected that the market size of the total Indian video OTT market would be around 4.5 billion. Of that, the paid market would be approximately 32% or 1.5 billion. So 1.5 billion would be revenue from subscriptions for the total Indian market, and we are trying to target a revenue of say 130 million by end of 5 years from launch of service. So approximately 1,000 crore revenue by end of 5 years after launch of service. This is what we are targeting. So it's approximately 10% of the market share. In terms of competition, other OTT services or competitors have this OTT aggregation services, but these services are linked to their existing products like mobile services or broadband services and so on. We are trying to give you an user-centric product which is not tied to any existing services, so that is most customer-centric, and will give better value for money and more flexibility in choosing the content you want to watch. Because most of our competitors give you a set number of say 10 OTTs and say you need to subscribe to all those services rather than buying one separately and so on. We are trying to give you more flexibility in choosing what you want to subscribe to and make it more easy for you to choose what you want. Advantage-wise, our microtransaction model will give you more flexibility because you can buy in smaller transactions and only choose that particular content to watch rather than getting a full platform. And also, we have a feature where you can recommend content or leave reviews of content and share it with your friends, because we believe that as a person, I would be more inclined to watch something my friend said it's good to watch, rather than read a review online on some newspaper who writes a lot of story about the whole thing, and you still don't try to make sense of what he's trying to say. So in this way, we can promote recommendations to your friends or in a social group. And since the ticket size also is very small for a particular transaction, it's not like you need to subscribe 1 year to watch this content. You may do 1 month or even smaller, like 1 day or 1 week, and that's what we're trying to achieve here. At this stage, we made deals with the two big national OTT players and one medium national-based OTT player, and also one regional OTT player. We had made deals with them so that you can get access to content through smaller transactions. I mean, in the microtransaction model. The product-wise, we plan to launch the product. You can watch traditionally using a browser like Opera or Chrome and etc. Also, we're launching apps for Android devices, iOS devices, smart TVs, and streaming devices like Amazon Fire, Google Chromecast, and etc. So when we launch the service, we would be supporting all these services at the same time. We don't plan to have our own set-top box separately, but you would be able to have access to content through multiple devices at the same time. The product, you would get access to live TV, recommendations across multiple platforms, access to multiple OTT platforms, single subscription for all the OTTs at the same time, and also you would get a platform aggregation, obviously, and we can recommend content in a better way, and you can share your experience to your friends and so on. In terms of freeloaders, it's a unique feature. I mean, it's a separate feature where, let's say, it's you. Let's say your friend is sharing an account. If your friend is sharing an account, even he has to pay to watch the content. So in that way, the revenue generation also will be more compared to traditional services. Say, for example, in Netflix, you got five people can watch at the same time, but you pay through a single account. In this case, every time somebody watches content, they have to pay for the content separately, unless it's the same content they're watching. So this is to give you, in this way, you can get better revenue from the customers. Traction wise, the microtransaction model, I'm looking at smaller transactions. So even a movie can cost you as low as 20 rupees to watch a movie. And then also you get additional features, like you will get 1 week time to complete to watch the movie, or within 1 week, if you want to watch the movie again, you don't need to pay extra, and so on. So by targeting smaller transactions, I'm sure that we can achieve more flexibility to the customer, and we can reach larger audiences in terms of customer interactions. So since this microtransaction model is something not available with anybody else in the market, and we are trying to use it to the best advantage, and at the same time get a user-centric product to the customer where he gets better user experience and better interfaces while searching and getting better recommendations. User projections is based on how currently the existing OTT platforms are performing. For example, somebody like Euros at the moment, in last year, they are an average of 10,000 subscribers per day, new customers. So based on this 5-year growth rates, and based on past history, we projecting a 1 year customer target of 0.5 million users, and by the end of 5 years, we are targeting 6.5 million customers. So based on an ARP of 70 to 75 rupees in the first year, which goes up to 150 rupees by end of year 5, we are targeting a revenue of 17 crores in the first year, going on all the way to 957 crores by end of 5 years. The business model is mostly you top up, since it's a microtransaction where you need to pay smaller amount, like say 5 rupees or 4 rupees or 10 rupees to watch a content or a movie. We have wallet where you top up with say 200 rupees or 300 rupees, and then you use the currency in the wallet to watch content as separately. In terms of investment, to launch the product and to give advances to OTTs, we're looking to around 2 to 3 crores for the first 4 months. Within the first 4 months, we would we'll get the product ready and launch it. Once we launch the service, most of the expenses would be minimum guarantees to the OTTs, and also we around the 7 to 8 crores of marketing expenses. So within the first 15 months and 5 to 15 months, we would be doing a lot of intensive marketing for the product. And after that, it would be a smaller fund requirement in terms of growth. So since we are targeting around 10 OTTs by the time we launch the service, we are looking around 10 to 12 crores of minimum guarantees for the OTTs, and around 6 to 8 crores of marketing, and the rest for people and infrastructure. This thing is the requirement for around 18 months of operations. After 18 months, we expect the business to be self-sustainable beyond 18 months for day-to-day activities. If you want to raise further money in Series A and B, it will probably be to do aggressive marketing or to go international markets. In terms of returns for an investment, I'm looking around 6 times to 8 times to 10 times, depending on whether you got a conservative to normal to optimistic scenarios of growth rates. As I said, the target customer is 6.5 million, and the revenues is between 750 to 1,100 crores based on what type of growth we have. Starting with the IRP of 70 rupees, I would end up with 150 IRP by end of year 5. But this is per customer, per account. Like in traditional TV, you would have somebody like Netflix, you would have an account with 5 people, but the revenue per account is going to be probably 200 rupees per month. But in our case, we are talking about revenue per customer. So everybody who watches has to pay for the content. So that's going to be around 150 per person who watches the content. And then the team is me, myself, and my partner Ravi Upasi. Ravi Upasi is a full stack developer who has a good experience in developing mobile apps. He worked in a few startups, and in many of the startups, he developed mobile applications for their products. And I've been in UK for the past 10 years, and I worked in business development and especially providing business development activities for small companies and medium-sized enterprises in UK. So we do mostly marketing, recruitment, and business development advice for small companies in UK in my service. And beyond that, we just have this company info, and that's it. So any questions or anything?
Hey, thank you, Gautam. Thank you, Ashutosh, and I think it was beautiful. Ashutosh, when I'm leaving the questions to you, Gautam, just an input is that if there's any other slides that you have,
Yeah.
which talks about your existing customer sales and anything else that you feel that is important for us to know.
At the moment,
Before
we haven't
Ash-
launched the service yet.
Okay, okay,
So
okay,
we just we're in the seed stage. We're looking for seed investment and beyond.
okay. Okay, I got that. All right, perfect. So you don't have okay, and the team is just two of you right now, or I saw three names I saw, right? That's the strength of the team right now.
No, the team has, we got two more guys working on designing and development in
And they're all full time.
web design.
Everyone is full time.
No, part time. Me and
Okay.
Ravi are full time. The rest are part time.
Rest are part time. Okay. ठीक है. Great. Otherwise, good. All the best. Hope you get lots and lots of sales and traction and money and everything. Okay. Ashutosh, over to you now. And Nida, I hope everything is sorted out for you to come online in the next few minutes. All right. Thanks. Ashutosh, over to you, sir.
Yeah, thank you. So Gautam, I think the presentation-wise, it was good. There are a few things, just in terms of suggestion, right? So when you're talking about the problem statement, right, the next slide was talking about like the competition and stuff. But I think it just confused me. So what I realized was later on that it was still part of the problem statement. So if it's consolidated, right, so that works well. The second thing is that I felt that there was like a lot of text, right? So when you send it to an investor, right, or I mean from a business presentation perspective, this was a perfect presentation, right?
Okay.
But when you're talking to an investor, right, I mean you have to understand they get like 50 to 100 presentations a day, so it has to be very like crisp in terms of like your wordings. So if you consolidate like the problem statement and the next slide into one slide, right, and then have like small bubbles and then you talk about it, that makes much more sense. That adds more value to it, right? So that's just one part to it. The second thing is that when an overall, just a very general suggestion is when we talk about investors, they like to see numbers. So so like in your TAM and SOM slide, you had the numbers, you had the right numbers, whatever
Yes.
you were trying to capture, right? But when you're talking about the other slides, right, how many customers, or like you talked about, one regional OTT you're trying to do a deal with and all that. So instead of having like a very verbal thing, you consolidate into like three big numbers that this is what you're looking at, this is what you have, and this is what you're trying to do.
Okay.
And that flows throughout, right? So user acquisition, everywhere you talk about that, so that flows throughout. So then when I'm looking at the slide, I know that this slide, you're talking about partnership, and I see this is the partnership you have, this is the partnership that you're getting. So it does two things. It tells immediately what you have given the amount of time you have taken to launch. Second, it does is it tells people what is the pipeline like what would be in the next 3 months or 6 months going to look like, right? So that just makes it very easier, right? So that's one more thing. And then in general, right, because entertainment is still very secluded space, very few people are in this space who are investing. So better idea is like also mark your sources. So when you are getting your numbers, like, this is a TAM, total addressable market, right? So what is the source that you got that information from? Right?
Okay.
So just like a source, like a star, and then, you point out the source.
Okay.
So those are just, like few of the pointers, right? So for instance, when you start talking in terms of numbers, when you start putting numbers more, what happens is that your slide numbers go down, because there's less text, more crispness, more value to it. So it becomes much more, readable. Right? From a business perspective, I'll still keep this, right? When you're presenting it to your, partners and, vendors, this is probably the right presentation to show it to them.
Okay.
But when you're talking to an investor, it has to be, it has that flow was not coming out, right? Especially, when you are asking for, like, what is the ask? I see that it was, narrowed down, but the ask is directly related to the task, right? So, what is the runway money for, and then how much that runway would be for, and all that. So, that has to be like clear. So these are just, few of the pointers that I'd like to mention.
So make it more concise and.
Yeah. I mean, make it more concise, more about the numbers, and then before, like, once you talk about the problem, right? The market address, right? So the market, research and the market validation is the next slide, because it comes as part of the problem. So when you're talking about the problem, then the market validation is how big of that problem is, right? And then you say that it's a $1 billion problem, it's a $2 billion problem. So then I know, as part of the problem, how big of a problem it is, and then that puts me into the path of your looking at the solution, looking at the interest level, right? So it gets me interested, right?
Okay.
So that's what the market validation comes next.
Okay.
Right? Then you talk about the solution, and then you talk about how you are capturing it and what part of it you're capturing.
Okay.
So that's how it goes. And competition, I like that whole idea, that whole graph, right? But it has to be more about, there's a reason competition is always put into quadrants, right? So because there is more than two aspects on which you are comparing your competition, right? So that's where it should be, because the first question somebody will ask you is, how long will it? Because see, if you look at Amazon Fire TV, right?
Yeah.
It has something similar. It's not microtransactions, but it has something similar where you can see they'll put it out that these are the things that you can watch immediately,
yes.
right? As long as you have the subscription to it,
yeah.
Right? So the first question that will come is, how long will it take for an Amazon to do this, right? So that's why when you have it in quadrant, right, and you also mention the bigger players, and then their move to doing something like this is slightly larger, right? That leap is slightly larger, and that's where it gives you the competitive edge, because this question will come, right?
Yes.
Where do you stand?
Yes. It
so
has
then,
many discussions I had.
Yeah. Right. So when you put that in a quadrant, right, and then you mention the big names as well, so that immediately tells to people that you've thought about this, then there's a reason why you think that they won't be able to make that step.
Okay.
Right. So that's how you get there.
Right? Okay. I got it.
So Vijetha, those are just the pointers from my side.
Sure. Ashutosh, I just written it down, and I'm just Gautam. You can also, I mean, I'm sure you've listened into it, and it's recorded also.
Yes.
Like, mention things like how big is the problem, so that it leads towards the market updates, which leads to solution, USPs, addressable market, and yes, definitely, why do you want the funding, and how well and how will the money be used, the purpose and outcomes.
Yeah.
And during the presentation, try to use less text, more information using data points, which might make sense to investors. And mark and quote your resources. If you're taking this data from some whichever which is authenticated resources, please mark it or quote it so that people know where you're getting this from. Talk about sales, customer pipelines, user acquisition, and yes, more data, more journey. I think this is what pointers were there, right?
Yes.
And maybe and Gautam, even a small 15-second, 30-second infographic, and come and with the video explainer video also is something that you can look for in the future. Okay. Because see, today video is a very important tool. Many times in the future, you may not even be meeting some of these investors face to face. Correct? They could be anywhere Okay, so using the video tools that you're going to be presenting with and all, you use it smartly and well. That's why you're using Vidphone also, by the way. And that will, it's small things, yeah, very, very small things. And do you have any mentors? Do you have any advisors? Even if you don't have, say that as of now we are building our board. So they see that you're very clear that when you grow to a big company, you're supposed to have all these things. Okay. So I hope it makes sense. And again, remember, we are all friends here. We're trying to support each other, trying to work towards how the founders can do even better. All right.
Yeah, sure.
So thanks, man. And let's all cheer for Nida next because she's coming on. All right. Hey, thanks, Gautam. Hang in there, buddy. Cheers. Cheers. Take care. Take care. Thanks, Ashutosh, for this wonderful feedback as well. So is Nida doing good? Her presentation? Yeah.
All right.
Can you see my screen?
Yes, boss. Yes, we can see your screen. Go to presentation. Yeah, perfect.
Perfect. Okay, yeah. So I'm representing Nife. Nife is connected last mile computing. So the idea of last mile computing came about because when I worked in corporate Hewlett Packard Oracle EMC, one of the primary problem that people or my customers would always talk about is latency, right? How application performance is low or network performance is low and things like that. So this is the problem that I started picking to solve. And when I dug deep, there were certain reasons why it was happening. Basically, today's cloud will not work for tomorrow's application. On one hand, there is an issue with symmetry in internet topology. When I say asymmetrical internet topology, what I mean is cloud is a central location and every central regional location gets connected to multiple devices. On the other hand, the data transfer that happens from multiple devices to a single location, it's too complex and it exponentially increases on a day-to-day basis. And then comes the applications of tomorrow, right? The ones that have a need of 5G, AI and IoT all need a faster response time. And it's really impractical for devices to have their own embedded AI chip of sorts that can do computation. It is really good for them to have, but it becomes very impractical because the battery life goes down. So the network today is actually shape-shifting. One hand, applications are becoming more distributed, more containerized and microservices based. On the other hand, both the data centers and telcos are setting up edge data centers for enhanced 4G, 5G use cases, and even for the OTT use case, just drawing lines from the previous pitch. So this is actually a change that is happening in the universe. So there is cloud, there is an edge data center, and then multiple devices that connected. So when this is happening, what is the issue, right? The issue is that there is communication between an edge device and a cloud that needs to be looked at, and the communication between an edge and an edge needs to be looked at. So this especially overcoming a bunch of architectural challenges, because the way a telco would deploy their edge servers, the way data centers would deploy their edge would be very different, and the communication aspect needs to be sorted. So given that there is edge data centers that are mushrooming all over the world, there needs to be an orchestrator, aggregator of sorts that can combine all this and provide these services for the end user. So Nife is exactly doing that. Nife is an operating system for an edge economy. We aggregate a bunch of infrastructure providers, that is the ISP, mobile network, public cloud, private cloud, CDN, and enterprises. At the same time, we optimize for latency, cost, performance, data storage, data privacy, data processing. And when we do both of this, aggregation and optimization, what we do is we bring applications close to where the end user is. So think of it as a CDN, which is your content delivery platform, which brings content close to where end user is. We bring applications close to where the end user is, so that there is no issue with latency, performance, or cost, or anything that my older enterprises were complaining about. So predominantly, I'll quickly run through this. So we do multi-cloud support. We have a bunch of things that we support. We provide a bunch of metrics related to utilization, latency, CPU, and other things like that. And a deployment is actually very simple. End user has to go and add services. You can deploy from cloud, or you can deploy a small Docker container. There are a bunch of toolkits that you can pick up and select, and that's about it. So once you're done with this, you go to a deployment criteria, you select the regions where the deployment needs to happen. Rest of the work, whether it's load balancing, predicting, caching, everything is done by us. So nobody needs to, our customers need not worry about anything. So going on from a competitive landscape, 5G is very nascent in this part of the world, which is APAC, but most of our customers are in UK and US. So our primary, most of our competitors are in UK and US, and that's the reason why our customers are also in UK and US. So both the companies that we mark as competitors are able to do that in those markets because of the developed nation sort of a thing where the 5G rollout has happened, right? And we are waiting for a 5G rollout to happen. We constantly get compared with AWS, Anthos, Google, Cloudflare. Actually, we don't do that. We aggregate even bunch of resources from AWS, Cloudflare, Google, etc., and so on. So this is where we want to be. This is our home ground, APAC. And we feel that as an emerging market, the way to capture it is very different from what it is in a developed economy. So about the market itself, we are at a very early stage right now because the 5G rollouts and other things like that are about to happen. We are about a 2 billion market, and the number 2 billion has actually come from Chetan Sharma consulting reports. We have highlighted the sources. The reason for the growth which we foresee in 2030 is because of the amount of devices that will be rolled out, the kind of infrastructure changes that are happening even from an application perspective, and from a demand perspective. We see a lot of use cases that are coming in with respect to remote working, ultra reliable, low latency, remote surgery, VDI, etc., and the list goes on, right? So that's how big the market is. And when we do a bottoms up market sizing numbers, even with number of devices that are going to come out, the edge rollouts, even if you say $2 per device, and it's about 40 billion devices that are there, that will be in market going forward. It's quite a huge number, and that's what we plan to achieve, get that market share. About a go-to-market strategy, we work in a very, we are a deep tech startup. We don't want to go out and release our product out to the end user, primarily because we don't want our NPS score to go down really badly. We want to ensure that we are targeting the exact customer use cases that are there, that the customer needs. And we want to ensure that each of the use cases that we are covering as a part of our platform offering makes sense for the end user, for the enterprises or the customers to use. So what we do is we pick up anchor clients and anchor use cases. We do a pilot with them, push it on to our channel partner route, and then push it on to our PaaS platform, which is our through our infrastructure partners. So far we have done about 3 pilots, and we have a pilot a pipeline also, and we have like a bunch of channel partners as well, and infrastructure partnership is already in place. What I've given below is the 5G rollout. 5G rollout map that is there. We completely accelerate our growth with the 5G rollout. So, but then these timelines have been moving predominantly because of the ecosystem changes that are happening. So about the whole the infrastructure partnership, actually, I have a bunch of logos here, but in interest of this being a live thing, I actually removed it. We have about 17 odd partners that we have all across the world, and that gives us access to 300 plus locations. There is one logo that got retained. I shall point it out. But so all the cloud providers we have a partnership with. We have partnership with managed data centers, CDN providers, as well as edge data center providers. So this covers even very small regions that you wouldn't have heard of across India and across the other parts of the world. So this is something that we've been able to do in last 6-7 months. We've also have a bunch of enterprise pilots that we've been working on. Like I mentioned, we've completed 2 and we're working on the 3rd one. And then there is a pipeline over there. From a channel partner perspective, we have like who's in the industry from an SI, a system integrator perspective. We have about 5 plus channel partners that we're working with to get more paid pilots. And then we have partnership with industry leaders, just so that once we solidify our product itself, we push it out to the channel partners. Along the way, we've also established partnership with universities. We are the founding members of Carnegie Edge Alliance in APAC. We are part of CMU's Open Edge Computing Lab. We have a patent provision with NUS, and also we tied up with the France university to get certain open source aspects cleared. We are part of ETSI also. So having said that, what are we? Our business model predominantly is platform as a service, and we do enterprise license-based integrations. For platform as a service, we charge on API compute storage, and we do a rev share with our partners. From a license perspective, we directly sell a license to our customers, about 300K to 600K per API call, per billion API calls is what we've come up with. These numbers keep varying from region to region. So that's the reason why these are all example numbers when it comes to platform as a service. This is the most complicated part of our entire business model, actually, the pricing itself. So from a founding team perspective, I'm Nida. I have about 10 plus years experience in enterprise infrastructure applications. I've been a part of startup ecosystem for the last 4 odd years. And my co-founder who recently joined our team like about 2 months ago is Bajaz. Bajaz is an ex CEO of Airtel, and he's been a part of a lot of telecom infrastructure plays, especially in Asia, Africa, and Middle East market. We also have Alok Jain, who works with us. He's an ex-SAP India retail head, and Afzal, who was my technical architect when I was in Delhi MC. He predominantly comes from a data center, IoT, and smart cities background. So we've been funded by Antler. We are valued at 1 mil right now, and at this juncture we are trying to raise a 500K bridge round so that we can continue working on our pilots and roll out our product offering in depth. So that's about it. I don't have an ask apart from connects at this point of time, and I always leave with this quote saying that it's easier to invent the future than predict it, and Nife is building the future of real-time computing. Thank you. Open for questions.
All right, great. I'll just come back online. Let me just also include Jagat in. Vijetha had to step out. Jagat, can you raise your hand? Okay. All right. So Nida, I think from your presentation, there's because you've already been funded, there's not much that I can offer in terms of the presentation changes. There are a couple of things that I do want to talk about.
Yes.
One of them is that in terms of the presentation itself, I think the problem statement it sounded very 5G centric, right?
Yeah.
I mean, I have an IoT startup, so I mean I could connect to it very, very quickly. But it still sounded very 5G centric. And then the problem with that is that as you rightly said, that the 5G rollout is kind of staggered, right? And then the most of the investors will say that once the 5G rollout starts to happen, then we'll see where it goes, right? But your problem is bigger than that. Right. So,
exactly.
I would not bring 5G that much. I saw 5G in few slides also. So I will not bring 5G in that, because that's what the investor will latch on to. They will say that this is a 5G problem, right?
Got it.
And especially because you're saying APAC, right? So APAC and 5G have a very terrible story right now, right? So
I think I'll have to agree with it. That's an area that I have noticed, and I see definitely. Another thing that I do, and probably I want feedback about it, is when I present the market size, I don't do conventional way of TAMS, Samsung, right? I don't do the conventional thing. I just show the projection because I want to show the market being very high. So is that the right way to do things, or do you think it should be like a Samsung TAM? Because would that make sense?
No, this is a very mature market, so I don't think you need the TAMs process, right? Yeah. But then it also the one thing that you want to bring in is that how much of the cut of the pie that you have, right? Or you're going to get, right? So because you said that also, and then this question will needlessly come as that, how about Anthos or AWS, or because AWS every year keeps on launching services, right?
Yeah.
So they are partners, they're with you, they're doing stuff with you, right?
Correct.
So but even if they come into the market, right? Let's say they bring their stuff into the market, right? Because you're hitting the smaller sectors also, tier 2, tier 3, I'm assuming, right? Because you said you're tying up with data centers, so that's one area where AWS doesn't work.
Exactly.
Right. So I would highlight that even if you have the bigger players coming into the market, there's one sector which is completely outlooked, right?
Got it.
And that's the sector you want to talk about, like Africa. So countries like Africa, are tier 2. Even in Australia, and then Australia and US have a concept.
I mean, in APAC, it's more than that. It's like Sri Lanka, Indonesia, Philippines, Thailand.
Right.
And India itself, if you look at a landscape, the segregation of data centers is very in specific locations. So what happens to an entire part of India, right? So yeah.
So I would bring that out more.
Got it.
Because that would weed out your competitive any other landscape that you would see in the competitive sense, right?
Got it.
And the third thing that I'd just briefly touch upon is the fact that when you're presenting this, right?
Yeah.
This question about the infrastructure, right? So you talk about like the small business, and I'm assuming that you do that and you've probably taken it out. So the smaller players also that work, right? Because when you talk about that, then you're also talking about regulations. One of the questions that you come up with, especially when you're looking for international investments, is you have to comply for local regulations, right? And that's one of the biggest challenges of data centers right now. India has its own privacy laws, GDPR, that is there, right? So how much are you complying with regulations? So when you talk about like smaller partners, that you're local partners specifically, then that means that you are complying with the local regulations. So just highlight that as well.
Got it.
Just few of my.
Yeah, perfect. Actually, I'll rework on some of the items that you mentioned, and if you're okay offline, probably I can share it with you. It perfectly makes sense. Thank you so much for your feedback.
No problem. And just one more point. So I do work with a company called INQ. So it's an accelerator program, and we also do business development. So we are Australia based. So if you're entering the Australia market, hit me up.
Yeah, definitely. Now you're on my WhatsApp, so I'll definitely hit you. Thank you so much. Okay, so I'll stop sharing now?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, thank you.
Jagat, your inputs?
Oh, no. I'm just building this out and happy to have, these are brilliant startups, right? I mean, each problem is amazing.
Yes.
I think Vijetha I had to leave, so I'm just kind of filling in. Amazing. I mean, over to you. I mean, any more discussions? I'm just an observer right now. In the end, probably I'll just have few words, and Ashutosh, your views also.
Yeah, I mean, in general, this is a very good service that we've done the startup stories. We have talked about, different landscape in startup. And Nida, if I'm not mistaken, you were with a startup journey, or there was one startup program, right? You were with, if I'm not mistaken.
Which one? I'm a part of Startup Leadership Program.
Startup Leadership Program, yes.
So I'm still a part of it. I see a lot of viewers joining in from there as well.
Okay.
So I'm a part of Startup Leadership, yes.
Okay, all right. Yeah. So, I mean, we've been doing this series for a while, Startup Story. So, we've covered most of the things that go in the pitch documents, and then, what are the things and pitches. From coming from an investorial background, I mean, the one thing that I did want to see was, how we can improve the pitches, right? So when I get, pitch documents, most of them we just flip through because there is either, too much information, too less information, right? Or it's not really very specific in terms of numbers, right? So my just 2 cents on this is always keep it very crisp in terms of like how through numeric numbers, numerical figures, you can show that this is where you are and this is where you want to go, and just keep it very crisp, right? And it should tell a story, right? So the presentation should tell a story, and that's why I was telling Gautam that the market validation comes right after the problem, because then you're talking about how big of the market it is, and then how does it relate to the problem. So that story comes into play, right? So through the presentation, because the first time when you send the presentation out, you're not there, right? When you talk about it, you can explain a lot of things, but when you send the presentation out, you're not there. So the obvious questions comes is, they'll try to relate it with what is out there, right? And that's where the problems come from the competitive landscape if you don't cover the bigger players also, or things like talking about 5G and stuff. So just be wary of that, because when you send the presentation out, these are the pointers they look down to, and then these are the questions that are going to be asked. Over to you, Jagat.
All right, so fantastic. So any other thoughts? I mean, Gautam and Nida, it's all your time.
Yeah, I mean, I would be interested in getting questions and feedback from people who are listening also. I see a lot of viewers. I mean, if they can also send feedback, even if not now. Okay, someone's raised an hand.
Yeah, let me take that 1 second.
Yeah.
No one's raised the hand. Basically, we have enabled the raise hand feature.
Oh, I see. Got it. So it would be great if people actually reach out to us and tell us, because see, my biggest problem has been storytelling, right? For a lot of reasons. One is either I come across too tech, or I go off the tech radar. So my need for the reason to be here is even to figure out if people understand the problem and the solution that I'm talking about. So I would love to hear feedback from that perspective, individually from everyone.
Yeah, and
yeah, I was saying that I would reach out to you, separately on some of those points. So,
you will? Okay, sure.
Yeah. Okay.
And I see a lot of people: Pratik, Prashant, Rajesh, Sundar, Anupama, Ravi, Shekhar, Sanjeev. Thanks all of you for joining this session. It would be really wonderful if any of you can, raise your hand, get into the conversation with us. Anything that you want to share. I think we're coming to the end of the program, so we give this probably 2 minutes. If anyone's coming in, feel free to pop in, right? Anything is okay. Any input is good. Thanks, Sundar. Really appreciate that. Raise hand is not enabled. This one's disabled. No, okay, I got it. Now it's enabled. Now raise hand is enabled, and you can come in. Thanks, Rajesh. Very nice. Anything else, Gautam? Are you there?
Yes, I'm here.
Any other inputs from your side? Anything else that you think you want to discuss? Open-ended discussion.
Yeah. There's one thing I want to ask. How do you assign a valuation to, like in my case, we are looking at since it's a customer-centric product, and most of the revenues come from customers. And how do I assign a valuation to it in terms when I go for fundraising in that some sort?
See, it's a slightly tricky question, but I'll just take B2C in general. So when you go to investors, right? So when you do your first raise, a lot of investors will have like a blind criteria, right? They would do, maybe they'll say that we'll put 300K or 100K for X equity, right? So that's like a blind criteria, because there's hardly any model that can be put forth, right, which will evaluate you properly, right? But the two models that go is, one is any competitor that you have, right, and how are they, how do they fare and what they're doing, right? So that's one way to look at it. The other way is the blank canvas, right? So where people just have a very fixed numbers. A lot of big investors and VC funds who are into early stage or a little bit seed stage have like a fixed amount, right? So they would say that they put this much money for this much. So it's a very fixed factor. What I'll also do is I will put a link in this chat group. So this is usually what I use for a very basic, crisp, simple valuation, right? I'm usually a very early stage investor, so my thesis is straightforward. If I like your story, if I like the product, I put this much money, right, for a very small equity, right? So when you're coming early, there's hardly any model that can do any justice, except the one which will be talking more either from a competitive landscape or like fixed.
Okay.
Are there any points you want to add? You've also done some fundraise, so any points that you have?
She's on mute.
Yeah. I agree with what Ashutosh just said. I think most VCs at an early stage are mostly looking at founder fit and mostly looking at the problem solution space. So you really can't go and say this is my valuation. But when we did do valuation, I mean, even for the pre-revenue, we did land up doing valuation. That seemed very complicated because without revenues, it's like very difficult. You're making a valuation based on assumptions. So that's a very difficult thing. I don't think I recommend that if you don't have revenue in place. But but what Ashutosh says is accurate.
I'm unable to take Ravi on video. I don't know how to use my app.
One man,
No, but I think his connection is probably a little weak. Ravi,
okay, I tried.
Ravi, can you just try and call us again? Just do the raise hand again. We'll have to bring you in. Sundar is asking, is it a good idea to talk about valuation in the first pitch presentation?
Depends on who you are presenting to. Here, maybe not. But, if you're talking to an investor and it's your first pitch, if you don't have customers and you just have like a MVP, I would say then don't talk about valuation, right? Because they would most likely drive the valuation. But if you do have customers, then you're in a different path. Then you would take that.
Some kind of connection problem with Ravi. Not able to bring him in.
Sundar also wanted to know how do we present our deck to this forum, so I just said he can send it to you.
Yeah, please. So we're going to do this. I think we're already next week.
Yeah.
We have some more wonderful founders coming in. I think thanks to Ashutosh and Vijetha. I hope there's a lot of value being added here, right? These are people who have already been there, done that. Really good to have collaboration. So anything else? I mean, final last couple of minutes. Any other pointers from anybody? And then I'll just, probably take a couple of minutes to see what we're doing. Last try for Ravi. I don't know what's the issue here. Really don't know. Okay, take call live. There he is. All right.
Hey, hi.
Go on, Ravi.
Hey,
what you do, who you are, your business, and then shoot.
Sure.
Ravi is my partner actually. Is one of my other business partners.
I see.
Go ahead.
Yeah. So, we started Streammunity with an intent where, I mean, this is like us getting frustrated every day with the subscribing to various OTT platforms, and looking at the founders League of Extraordinary Startups group. I was extremely elated to see a lot of people who are trying to create a lot of great things, and just being part of that. And I just joined to ask a simple question there. So I mean, when Streammunity is just an idea, we wanted to validate whether it is just a problem for us or there are already a bunch of people who are actually facing this. I mean, is it a problem that should be addressed and then you can make money out of it, or something that makes people's life easier? And what we did was we rolled out a survey to friends and families, and to check what they think of something like, if I just put everything under one roof and then ask you to subscribe and everything, and then just pay for what you use. And everybody said yeah, it's great, good to see that and stuff. Well, when you don't have it, I mean, nobody says no, I don't like it, I'm not gonna. I mean, yeah, you get the point, right? So I was kind of curious to kind of check and validate how to validate your idea. I mean, yeah, we are beyond that, but we still want to have that as a great pointer to showcase to the investor that yes, this problem very much exists, and we wanted to solve it the way we wanted to solve it, so that it actually make people's life easy.
So the question is how to validate the idea.
Yeah.
Research. I mean, Jagat will kill me one day because I say research all the time, but there is no better way to do that, right? So I mean, obviously, if you have competitors out there, right? So when there is one instant validation right there that it's working. But other than that, especially the research becomes very important because when you're especially talking about your song, right? You have to look at where do you start, and to look at where do you start, you have to do the research on, if something like this makes sense. Sure, like the area that you're in, I'm sure if you talk to everyone will say that this is a big problem, right?
Yeah.
But the moment you go from Bangalore to probably UDP, people will say, "What are you talking about?" Right?
Yeah.
So that's the thing. So that's where research comes in handy. Right? So your research will tell you where you have to start. Your research will tell you, what is the next 6 months of market that you have to capture. But if you are in Bangalore, you talk to people. If you are in Mumbai, you talk to people. People will say, "We love it." Right? So then you have a great sector of society that you have to look at. Right? And then the other thing, the other part of the research, the one part of research is talking to people because you're in a B2C app. And the other part of the research is looking at, because you're trying to solve a problem. The problem has entities like, Amazon and Netflix and all that, right? And so then start looking at these numbers, like how much of the viewership comes from each of these, right, on a daily basis. So then you know that even if you capture like 1% of that market, you've captured something. So that's how the the validation comes. Jagat.
Anything else, Ravi, before we?
No, you should also put some views on your validation.
Validation, I think, is a constant process in evolution. I think you are hitting one milestone A. Like, I think everything goes in stages. Uh, you know, that's the way I think I look at it. I think it's difficult to say is the idea validated forever. Like, it's not like that. Right? I think A to B, and then you kind of validate that. You say, okay, I want 10 sales here. If I hit the 10 sales in 10 days, 2 days, I'm on. And I think these things are simple metrics, I think, to do it. Right? But I think today, I think there's a lot of there are a lot of systems now for validation. Right? You have customer development and you have Steve Blanks, and all of this stuff has now become theory, and it's like pretty clear how to go about it. But I think the thing is, are you hitting your success goals? Like, define a goal, like hitting it. That's validation. And how you define it, I think, depends on your business model and what you want to kind of validate. Like, for me, if it's engagement, like if I need an average session to be 2 hours, is somebody popping in and staying for 1.5 hours? So that's probably what I'm tracking. It may not necessarily be are you using it every day, or somebody else. So I think it's pretty straightforward, right? I think pick one goal, pick one number. I think if you hit that, it's validated. It's not. It's binary. So is that straightforward? The good thing about validation is science, right? It's not art, and it's what you want to validate. But yeah, I think it's great business, guys. Really, thanks for coming on the show. Thanks for coming from the platform, and best wishes to all you guys.
And I have one last question. I'm so sorry if I'm taking time. So, the thing is, since this is a B2C market, so I mean, you gotta be pouring a lot of money into establishing the brand. So, I mean, for someone who's actually looking to raise, say, 12 to 15 crores in the first year, which is around $2 million, without any startup experience. So, how do we like present this to the investor? Like, what should the investor see in us? What should we do to make the investors trust us? One thing is product, yes. Anything else?
So the investors, and that's where I was talking about, like the numbers front, right? So the investors see, first and foremost, they look at your pedigree, right? What you've done. I mean, you can be first-time founder, you can be, serial entrepreneur, but they look at the pedigree, right? What have you done, right? But that's just like one part of the story, correct? Because there are a lot of student founders, who got like raised for it, right? So the second part to that is the idea that you're presenting. Can it make 5x or 10x to them, right? And at the stage that you're putting in. And that is validated through your product, the market, that is, the competitive landscape, right? And how you are approaching it, So that approach is very important. You have the solution in mind, right? So you're saying that you have this OTT platform, it's a web-based platform, this is technology, recommendation, blah blah blah, right? It's great, right? But how are you going to do it, right? Are you attacking the tier 1 market first? Or are you attacking the tier 2 market first? Are you attacking the regional market first, right? If you do a little bit more research, you'll find out that AsiaNet has more viewership than Netflix and all other OTTs combined.
Yeah.
Right? So do you want to attack that market? So the moment you attack that market, then you have somebody's interest that, okay, the moment you capture that market, you're capturing this huge audience, right? Because that audience is not just in India, it's in US, it's sitting everywhere, right?
Correct.
So that how is very important. How, when in your presentation, in your decks, you have to talk about that how. Right? So that's one area when you put, because specifically from your perspective, right? You have everything set. You have the solution in mind. Your solution will get 5 to 10x revenue if done properly, right? So that if done properly is the question that the investors will look at from your pitch deck and from your presentation. So you have to convince them.
Now, even I think one small point I'd like to share. I mean, we raised a round from some angel investors, and now we're looking at our Series A, pre-Series A kind of round. I think investors, again, as Ashutosh said, first is of course the founder. I think because it's really the business model will change. Any startup, it will change. It's not that it may change; it will change. And so the idea is not really. I mean, of course, market. You go with Anderson Horowitz guys that they look at market as number one. If you're a real investor, you may bet on an average founder, but if that guy is in an insane market, you would still give preference to that over a founder who's an established founder in a micro market. That's, I think, the venture rules are market first. So I think yours is a big entertainment. I think coming to the trust of investors, that's the essence of the question. And I think that's, again, it takes time. I don't think deals are closed overnight. I think it takes 3 to 6 months, 1 year of relationship for them to say you're in the business, you've grown. And that, I think, is a big part of it, by updating them. Right? But I think, that's really important. Like, investors are people, I think. I think we have to look at them that way. And it's just a relationship. And I think once they see you're genuine and they kind of know your play and how you are evolving the play over time, I think even if you're not a successful founder previously, if you don't have an exit, but if you can demonstrate 6 months to 1 year that you've taken from A and gone to B, I think that also, keep them updated emails. I think that's the way. I don't think it's happened overnight, right? Funding, I think it takes a bit of time. So 3 to 6 months. So I think just like any other relationship, right? I think that's how it is.
Yeah.
So that's
and just one more point I'd add to that is that when you're talking about investors, do research on the investors as well. I mean, my thesis has always been that a pitch deck is always made for a particular investor. There is no one rule that you can make a pitch deck which will suit all. Right? So if you send it to one investor, it'd be very different that you send it to like an institutional investor. Right? So institutional investors get like 200 pitches. So how do you make sure that your pitch deck sits in front of them? If you're talking to an HNI, it's quite different, right? So HNI is, if you're talking to an Indian HNI, is different. If you're talking to an RI HNI, it's quite different. So do your research on the investor as well before you're putting that pitch deck.
And I think one point we missed out, Ashutosh. I think the referral for the investor is critical. The trust. You can't cold email an investor. That's again, I think, something
you can, right? So you can. So that's why I talked about that how part, right? So you rightly pointed out to Anderson, right? So Anderson is the one who started this trend where he invested in markets where he invested in businesses where there was the huge market, but the founders were not known, and that was specifically because he is he's known for that, and then he can derive that how, right? But that your slide deck should talk about like the how are you getting stuff out, right? And that's what is the referral. So a lot of investors will entertain your cold email if it has a market that is worthwhile.
Yeah, I think I certainly agree to that. Yeah, even some cold emails that we send it to investors, yeah, turned out to be like no replies.
No, you have to really hack your subject lines. And then you just lost! Exclamation!
If you're doing a cold email, it's like sending a resume. It has to come with a cover letter and everything, right? Your email has to talk about the pitch deck, your story before they open the pitch deck. So, but I mean, they would entertain it if it has worth.
And I think many investors also have on their website straight that you can pitch them. So that's good.
Yeah.
Yes.
All right, Ravi.
Thanks, man. Thank you so much.
Great having you. Thank you so much. Yeah.
Thank you for the channel.
Stay in touch. Bye. All right. I think, yeah. Ashutosh, any parting words? And then we are kind of wrapping up. Yeah.
No, I mean, I think it was great. So I think this is kind of the evolution of our startup story, and I think we have taken the right step. At least I feel we have taken the right step, right? So I hope Gautam and Nida, you both enjoyed this, right? So we'll continue this next time onwards as well.
Yeah, sure, Ashutosh, and thank you, Jagat and Ashutosh, for your valuable advice.
Yeah, thank you so much, Ashutosh and Jagat. This has been really nice. And generally, the deck that I present is to one investor or group of investors, but really get a lot more perspective, which is really cool. Thank you.
Thank you.
Right. Also, thanks to Vijetha, who had to get off early. Big thanks to him. He makes this whole thing happen. And I just want to take 1 minute to tell you about what we do, about Vidphone. So just give me one, probably a minute. It's not going to be a 10-slide pitch, but we're about the future of work, right? This is really about the virtual office for remote work. So our pitch is slightly different. We talk about a big shift in the world, and there's the remote economy. We don't talk about a problem statement. We first talk about the big shift. And what's the problem in that, the customer experience is broken. Our real, play is this, right? We enable entrepreneurs to have a virtual office where you can basically have your remote sales, remote marketing, remote support, and your collaboration all in one integrated suite, right? So we really want to appeal, and we want to call out to all the entrepreneurs today who are working remote, everyone who's tired of sending scheduled links and no real business happening. My suggestion is, you get one of these. This is the Vidphone virtual office. As you can see, this is the only video customer touch point on the planet today that a business can have. Any customer can reach out to you in video, watch your webinars, connect with video chat, support. Everything happens in video, right? So, and video is the future. So happy to roll this out to all the startups and entrepreneurs. Reach out and we can connect on more details, right? And more importantly, I think I want to talk about our initiatives for a second. Startup story, of course, we've had so many sessions with Ashutosh. I encourage everybody to go and watch the previous episodes. These, I think, are kind of timeless. Like, these are modules. You can always refer them. Second is, of course, this evolution, right? I think the next series, we're going to have some more founders coming. The idea is that everyone learn from each other's errors, right? As a founder, we can't make all the errors ourselves. Somebody asked that yesterday, is that, will this be public? Of course it's public, right? There's nothing confidential here. That's how everybody learns. LXS, League of Extraordinary Startups, they've covered nearly 50 odd startups here. It's basically the founders, the time for the founders to hog the spotlight, right? We know we guys work very hard. So you get 1 hour to just go unplugged all about your business, right? Startup Sunday, another initiative we have, we call it the informal boardroom. I think every startup founder fights a very lonely battle. You don't have like a big board of directors to go for advice. But sometimes, other founders are a great source of advice and help, right? So we just bring in 3-4 founders and put out your problems, and hopefully the other founders solve it. So a lot of interesting initiatives that we are kind of doing with Ashutosh, Vijetha, a lot of other people in the community. Feel free to also, suggest more initiatives that we can do. Happy to help and kind of build the community together, right? Thank you, everybody. Thanks, Ashutosh, Nida, Gautam, Vijetha, all the audience. And until the next startup story, thank you very much and have a great week. Thank you. Thanks.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.